Hey everyone, hi good people. Josh here with the Sit Down Hawaii podcast. So glad that you're here. Hey, before we get started, I want to remind you we're not a political podcast. We are a podcast that talk about issues and ask questions to the answers that you're seeking. And as you know, it is the election season, so that's why we're doing this. I'm really excited. Today we have a guest that is asking for your vote to represent you out in District 32, Moana Loa. I do want to let you know we did send emails out to everyone, right? We sent emails out to every district, to the incumbents, to challengers, to everyone. And some people got back and said, absolutely, I'll do this. Others said, maybe not for me. But our guest today really jumped at the chance, and I'm very, very thankful, very, very grateful. So with that, I would like to introduce to you Garner, Shimizu. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Josh, for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta say, when you jumped in, when you came in, I felt this overwhelming peace of someone who is just happy. Do people tell you that?
Uh, some yes, and others no, but for the most part, I do feel peace. I feel God's peace of why I'm doing this, and just feeling His favor and confirmation that I'm doing the right thing for the right reason.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you're listening to this at home and you're in District 32, and I want to go over that because it's a pretty big district.
hmm
So it states Mauna Loa, Aleomanu, Foster Village. We've got we got Aiea, parts of Halava, and Pearl Ridge. So if you're in this community, do me a favor, share this because it's going to be about um, issues that's pertinent to you. And so I think that's really important. I also want to say that we did send an email out to Micah Ayu, and no response, and that's fine. But I do want you to know that we did send that out. We did give him an opportunity, but we are really happy to have Garner here with us. Before we start, we have 3 rules here, and the first rule is respect. So you may not agree with everything that's going on. You may not agree with Micah or any other things that's happening in your district, but we're going to try to be respectful. The second thing is we want to make it about the people in Mauna Loa. We want to make it about
Absolutely,
the
yes.
people in District 32. So the rule or the saying is you can go as wide or as deep or anything that you want, but my job will be to pull it back for you, the listener. Okay. And then the last thing is let's have fun. Let's just
Awesome.
hopefully enjoy, take a deep breath. It's a podcast, and maybe we get to know you a little better as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that.
Awesome. So let's just start off a little bit about you, and then why you're running. Yeah.
Okay. I grew up in the Wanalo area, graduated from Wanalo High School, class of 77.
Nice.
Um, so I did make 65 this year on Medicare, got my Medicare card, um, graduated from University of Hawaii in mechanical engineering,
Oh wow.
worked a couple years as a mechanical engineer consultant, working with architects, design team, preparing specifications and design drawings on various facilities. And then the Lord called me to help my dad in his family business, sheet metal and air conditioning subcontracting business in the
Oh,
construction industry. Uh, I did estimating and project managing and um, worked with the union. I got voted into the board of trustees, and that works with the labor union that represents our trade and manages the trust funds, which are for the beneficiaries when they retire. Um, so I did have a wide gamut of experience in the construction industry, um, very challenging area. Been married. I am still married to the
congratulations.
same wife. 37 years,
Wow.
3 adult children. I'm so proud of them. Beautiful human beings. My 2 daughters are actually on my core campaign team and just doing amazing things for me. And I wouldn't be anywhere near where I'm at without them. My wife is also on my campaign team. I have 5 grandchildren.
Wow.
So I am very concerned about their future and the Hawaii that they are inheriting. I have also been involved in my community. I live in Mono Valley. I've been past president. I'm on
Oh wow.
currently on the board. I'm also a captain on the neighborhood security watch team. Um, yeah, that's it
Yeah.
for now.
I guess so. How long would you say you've been in the Mauna Loa community?
Well, our family moved there when I was in the third grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm not good with math, but that seems like a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah, yeah.
How do you think uh how do you think Mauna Loa has changed since, I mean, you've seen it. You've grown up there. So what does that look like? What did it look like then and what are you seeing now?
I think this can be true for any neighborhood where you're at. When we moved into the valley, it was a new subdivision. So there were a lot of empty lots because it was just developing. Um, and then it gets built out. And I think every neighborhood kind of goes through a life cycle where you have new families, a lot of kids. You have friends play on the street. We grow up, move out, family gets older, parents get old, um, they pass away, or you gotta come back home, take care of them. Um, Parents pass. Um, they either sell, new tenants come in, and then there's a turnover, and that's what I've been experiencing as I've walked the district now for two times now. Monlo Gardens mainly, Monlo Valley, Foster Village, Halava area, Lower Iea, Pearl Ridge area. um, I see that. I see life happening before me. And I told my wife, it's almost like my life has expanded as I experience life vicariously through all these different people I meet.
Mm.
And it really opens my heart and my mind, and my perspective, and it just deepens my commitment to help people, because we're all trying to do our best, and we do struggle. Life has its struggles, and we need each other to help get over those obstacles.
Yeah, it's interesting because my wife and I, we moved to Ho'opili, and we were looking where should we move, right? And man, Mauna Loa is like perfect, right? You got like community and you kind of avoid the west side traffic and coming
Yeah,
from town, just right when you hit the crazy traffic, it's almost like,
exactly.
oh, get away from it. I feel like
Exactly.
it's like that spot, that gem where if you just know traffic, you're
Yeah.
like, this place is probably where you want to land,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's always been that almost like that safe haven, just the way that I see it, right? I'm not from Mauna Loa or anywhere near there. uh, doing some research with what you've done, and you know, you've run multiple times, and you've put effort and you've put your name in the hat, and I commend you for that to continue. And I guess my question is like, what's different about this time, or why are you doing this? Like, what is driving you to continue to do this?
Yeah. Good question, Josh. Thank you. As a person of faith, I really felt called and invited by God to partner with Him and help people. I first heard that in 2010, and it was an opportunity that was afforded. Anytime you're running for office, an open seat is the best time to run, because you're not running against an incumbent. An incumbent is someone who's has that established office, and it was an open seat. I ran in 2010. I ran late, because it was unexpected, um, and I, I I thought I did great. I thought I was gonna win, and it didn't happen. The next election came around 2012, which is a 2-year cycle, because House of Representatives is a 2-year term. And I almost felt at that time obligated to run. So my heart wasn't really in it as far as the first time, but I just felt it was my duty to do it, and I did it. And just it was hard, because when you run for office, it's hard work.
Mm.
You sacrifice a lot. But two times, and it didn't happen. I just felt like, well, God, I did my best. I tried. I guess it wasn't meant to be. And then 10 years later, in 2022, the last election, same opportunity, but it's not even on my radar. But it's an open seat because the incumbent retired. A friend of mine gives me a call 2 weeks before the filing deadline, and she goes, "Hey Garner, would you pray about running because it's an open seat? There's only one person running, and you want to give people a choice." And I kind of half laughed because it wasn't even on my radar, and I thought, okay, um, being a believer, I gotta trust God, and I gotta ask Him if this is what He really wants for me. And of course, I have to ask my wife. And I thought for sure when I would tell her what was being asked, she would say no right off the bat. And when I shared it with her, I was so surprised that she almost giggled. And it was like, wow, she didn't shut it down. And we just started praying about it. And it was so ironic because we were actually leaving on a trip, a road trip, the next morning for 2 weeks. And we would come back the day before the filing deadline. So we thought, how can we do this? Because we're going to be away. When you file papers, you need to get your papers in order. You need to get um, 25 signatures validating that they would um, endorse you to run. And, we were going to be away. So, how were we going to do this? But long story short, um, we did it. We ran, we filed on the filing deadline. And to tell you the truth, when I found out who my opponent was, um, as running as a Republican, it's very difficult. You know, as you know, Hawaii is a very blue Democratic state, and I didn't run as a Republican to make my life easier. That's for sure. Um, you know, I I I did it based on principle and my beliefs, and um, it's funny because I've heard people say, "Oh, you should have run as a Democrat because it would be easier for you. You'd get into office." And yes, that's true, but just sometimes you do things because you feel that's the right thing to do. And I have nothing against Democrats or people who believe in the party, but for me, I just felt like my values lined up with the Republican platform. And I actually, when I first ran in 2010, I wanted to run as an independent because I knew that the parties have this stigma, they have a label, and people have these preconceived ideas on labels. So I just wanted to be free of that, run as an independent. But the way our system is set up with the primary, and you have to choose a party. People told me if you run as an independent, you're going to be wasting your time because you need to get 10% of the vote, the primary vote, in order to get to the general. And as a newcomer, nobody was going to pull the independent ticket just to vote for me. So I did have to choose. I chose Republican, and I've just been running an uphill battle ever since. But I did run in 22. I came 246 votes short, which was 3% of the vote, which is like really close for any Republican. I felt like God confirmed that I was on the right track. And what is different, going back to the question, is I started from day one after the 22 election results, knowing that God still wanted me to run in 24. So I had a whole almost 2 years to think about it, to strategize, to get involved in the public, the community. I started to attend all the neighborhood board meetings, all the community association meetings. I started to attend as many community events as reasonably possible. Um, and then I started, strategizing on how I was going to get my message across. And I think going back to the spiritual aspect of me as a believer is in 2010, from 2010 to now 2022, when I did run, like, again, you know, God did a lot of work in me internally. He did a lot of healing. He did a lot of deposit of His love and His care. And I like to think and believe that I'm a better person 10 years later, and I have even more of a commitment and a pure care and concern for my fellow neighbor, and that's what's really driving me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna go into our segment that's just called our talk story segment. Listen, add some comments and share this. It's really, really good stuff. I want to preface this by saying Civil Beat did a pretty thorough questionnaire. There's things online that you can find for both Garner and for Micah, and I would recommend you go there. Like if you want very specific details, if you want to go really deep. Today we're going to talk about the issues at a normal residence level. Just and I don't even know what that is or really what that means. Just basically taking away all the fluff. We know that there's some problems, and we want to address them in a way that everybody can understand. And I'm speaking for myself. Like
Sure.
sometimes I see something, I hear this bill and that and this, and to be honest, I don't really know all of it. I just know that some things need a change for the better, and so
Mhm.
we're gonna jump right in. The way we do this is we just talk about a statistic, and then we pull a question, and then we just talk about it. Okay,
Mhm.
so we're gonna jump right in. Our first our first topic is public safety and rising crime rates. Here's the statistic. Reports of car thefts in the district have increased by 15% in the past year. Crime, particularly property crime and vehicle break ins, have been rising in Mauna Loa and surrounding areas, leading to concerns about public safety. What specific steps would you take to address rising property crime and ensure that residents feel safe in their neighborhoods?
Yeah, I see that concern as I have gone door to door and talked to people. You see all the gates and the fences up, the security cameras. I'm a firm believer in neighborhood security watch. As I shared, I'm a captain on the neighborhood security watch in our Moanalo Valley, and shout out to Lee Kunimitsu who restarted our community neighborhood security watch about 3 4 years ago. And I could really see and sense and feel the difference when neighbors are helping neighbors and neighbors are connected. Yeah. um, and I see that even as I go door to door, that people that feel like they know their neighbors, that they feel safe in their home, is because they have good relationship with their neighbors. Yeah, they're
Mm.
they're helping each other, they're watching out for each other. Just that kind of old school, um, helping each other, and that's what it comes down to. And I think Neighborhood Security Watch is a great organization and a great way of helping people get out of their silos, get out of their just being in their own world and connecting with people. I'd like to see Neighborhood Security Watch established in every neighborhood. And I believe so much in it that um, I did a walking piece for Moanalo Gardens and Moanalo Valley that was talking about neighborhood security watch and inviting people to contact the coordinator of the gardens and the valley to sign up, to register, to be involved in this. Because when you're connected, you're part of the communication. You're part of a arm to help HPD, because HPD can't do it all. They're
Mm.
already understaffed. There's so many people, so many concerns that when neighbors can help them and communicate, be the eyes and ears, and communicate, help others, alert each other for um, concerning incidences or people that are questionable. Um, that goes a long way. Yeah.
Yeah, when you think of what's currently happening and you think about, the current representation and how is there anything that comes to mind specifically when you say, hey, you know what, the involvement between the neighborhood watch and HPD, is there something there? Like, is there something that needs to happen? Is there and I'll give you an example, right? When I grew up in Honokaihale, right? And it's a small little town outside of Nanakuli. And we knew the cops, and the cops knew us, right? Like that's Josh, he lives over there at that house, and that's
Hmm.
Officer Laudermilk, or that's Officer Cully, or whatever, right?
Hmm.
There was this like crazy connection,
Hmm.
and I think maybe they thought about this, or maybe they didn't, but you knew them. We knew our firefighters, we knew our policemen, and it was very integrated. I walk down the road now, and that's definitely not the case. I have no clue who's anybody, and I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, but in your mind, what can we do, or what can you do for District 32 to bridge that gap, or is there anything in your mind around that?
I think I mean I totally agree with you, and it goes back to what I was sharing earlier, how the life cycle of a neighborhood where everyone kind of grows up together almost because you move there, you raise your kids, everybody's the same neighbor, you get to know each other, and then as time passes, there's changes and new people come in, and I go back to neighborhood security watch being that vehicle of kind of integrating people and reconnecting people back. So I really believe that's important. And actually, when you set up the neighborhood security watch, you do it in conjunction and in partnership with HPD. They assign somebody that's a liaison, and we have Officer Jonathan Ing. He does a great job. Um, he attends our monthly meetings and he gives us reports on crime statistics. He answers questions. Um, so those kinds of things is really important. What I'd like to see, and it's probably a city issue, and if elected, I would love to work with my city council counterpart of establishing some kind of a more of a formal organization set up and even a budget for neighborhood security watch, because right now it's all volunteer led and there is no budget. So if somebody like Ali is heading it up, he's doing a lot of things out of his own pocket to um, schedule meetings, so to have refreshments or even literature that would be passed around. There is no budget, so I think a little investment into the community for neighborhood security watch would go a really long way.
Yeah, you kind of brought up a few times now that there's that life cycle of a neighborhood. It's really interesting. I want to kind of move to another one of our questions, and so we're gonna jump into affordable housing and development as this neighborhood, and it's kind of cool that you're seeing the whole process, right? If you said you moved in as one of the originals and the lots, and you can only imagine what the excitement and what that looks like, right? And then let's just fast forward a few years, and now we're where we're at, and it seems to be established.
Mhm.
There's an identity, there's culture there, there's a lot of things there. Um, okay, so affordable housing and development. Statistic: median home prices in District 32 have risen by 12%, and I think that's conservative over the last 2 years, contributing to increased affordability challenges. The cost of living in Mauna Loa and surrounding areas continue to rise, making it difficult for working families to afford housing. So, what specific policies would you implement to ensure that future development includes affordable housing and doesn't compromise character of your district?
Yeah, that is definitely a loaded question because there's so many angles and aspects and factors to that. Um, you know, affordability. We live on an island. There's limited land space. Um, you have people from all over the world wanting to live in Hawaii because it's such a beautiful place. So you got all those aspects, and how do you balance that with individual rights of
Mm.
property owners and their right to um, develop the land as they see fit. So there's this dance and balance that I think government um, needs to have uh, more communication, more transparency. Of course, that's easy in theory to say. How does it actually look like? How does it actually work? It is where the proof is in the details. Yeah, and um, I think it's a hard question. In my district, I look at Aloha Stadium development. That's a really big development that's going to be happening. Um, Affordable housing is one of the components of that development. So, right now, I'd like to see what the developers' plans are as far as how that's gonna look like. Because right now, it is um, just put in a wish list almost of what is supposed to happen, but how it's actually designed and executed, that remains to be seen by the developer because it's still in its bidding and approval stages. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I never thought about the Aloha Stadium. What does that look like? Can you just, from your perspective, from your point of view, and this is your community, what would you tell someone in Aloha, or I mean Aiea? Where are we at? What does this look like, and what needs to happen in your from your perspective?
Uh, as I've gone door to door, I think one of the problems that comes up is, like I said, a older community. Um, People get old and houses get old. So you see houses that are in disrepair. So the new owners come in, they totally demolish it, and they build a bright new shiny home. And one of the concerns is monster homes.
Mm,
And there's good and bad about that, right? Because you're utilizing the space as to maximize the volume of that area. And if you have multi-families, your kids, your kupuna there, that makes sense. But
yeah,
when it's like you're doing it for rental, um, where does that balance come in? Because some people are gonna do it for income, and that's nothing wrong with that.
right.
But there is I think a boundary of you don't want it to be like an apartment building, and then your utilities get stressed. Parking is a problem. So how do you balance this? And sometimes I wonder when I see a home that comes up and it's a monster home. It's like, wow, how did this get approved? So I'd like to kind of like review those situations with the city and the Department of Planning and Permitting, and trying to make adjustments or corrections where it's needed, and make sure that we're addressing a problem, but we're not creating another problem. Yeah.
Mm.
And there is no perfect solution. It is very dynamic, and every community is different. I mean, I can go door to door in a neighborhood, and from one street to another, it looks, the complexity and environment looks different. Or from
Mm.
one end of the street to another, it can be different, just based on
Wow.
the people that are living there, and the
Right.
neighbors, and how they uh conduct life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. It seems like a neighborhood that there's some changes, right? There's
Hmm.
some movement of people. I have in my notes that there's a pretty strong in your community, especially your district, that the proximity to Hickam and Pearl Harbor, and there's a growing and a pretty strong military community. And so one of the things that we popped up was the civilian population, and how do we manage maybe new people coming into the community, especially if there's somebody who's been there for 50 years, right? And you want to be welcoming, but also there's things that have been going on for a very long time, right? And so we did pull a little bit about that. One of the questions that we had was, um, and it I'm gonna just state it as written. So, District 32 is home to many military families due to its proximity to military bases, Pearl Harbor and other bases, which can create tension between military-related development and the needs of long-term civilian residents. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the residents themselves are conducting themselves in a way that everyone's upset, but the military has their needs, community has their needs, and the question is, how will you ensure that future development and infrastructure improvements serve both civilian, and military communities. How will you balance the needs of both groups?
Yeah, again, those are good questions. It's like you look around, you read the paper, the problems are very obvious, and then the solutions are not so obvious, because there's so many dynamics, and obviously, like the saying goes, you can't please all the people all the time, and you have to cut a balance on where you can do the most good for the most people. Um, I think when you talk about the military, obviously the military has a great presence in Hawaii, and District 32 is including Fort Shafter. It
Mm.
includes Tripler Hospital. It includes the Coast Guard on Red Hill. It includes the Aliamanu Military Reservation, which is a housing area for military. Um, and Pearl Harbor and Hickam are close by, so we are surrounded. There's things that go on, helicopter noise because the helicopters are flying to Fort Shafter or Tripler from Schofield or Hickam, and people complain about helicopter noise. So there's this balance of uh, living comfortably together and having a level of understanding and compromise for each other. And I think that's a challenge. I think what came up in our uh, talk about the military is the Red Hill issue,
Yeah.
and I think everybody's pretty familiar that the Red Hill fuel tanks, which is the biggest fuel storage in the whole Pacific, was located above our water aquifer. And because of the leaks, it was contaminating our water source, which is of major
Yeah.
critical concern because life is water. Water is life, excuse me. You know what I mean? Water is life. And if that got contaminated, which it did to some degree, um, how are we going to live? So I think the beautiful part about that was it was a great example of community public rising up, unifying, um, and making their voices heard, um, in a righteous way for a righteous cause. And it effected change where the military, or actually our government, our local government, had to get involved in that, back it up, unify with it, and go to the military, and the military had to address the problem, so much so that they drained the tanks. They made the decision that they're gonna um, decertify that place, and drain the tanks out, take away the pipes, um, possibly repurpose it. We don't know what the future plans are, but it's not gonna. It's supposedly never gonna be used as a fuel source again that would contaminate our water. So that is a great example of community getting off their hands, getting involved, and again, it has to be done in a honorable and respectful way, and um, being out of love for the Aina and love for the people, and not moving into hate or judgment. Yeah.
How do you see yourself in this next season? Should you be elected? But what is there anything that needs to happen on behalf of the community's voice, um, with the military, or what, in your opinion, just where are we at with that? And is there something that you're like, hey, I need to do this, or this needs to happen, or is this a wait and see? Everything's already been kind of sifted over. I don't know, so I'm asking. What's your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts around that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if you're asking specifically about the Red Hill situation,
Hmm.
um, there is the concern of what has leaked and is in the ground and has entered the aquifer. And that's where you read in the paper that they have all these monitoring wells, and they're doing test samples to see um, and try to track the movement of this. They call it a plume of um, fuel that has leaked into the environment. Um, so that has to be an ongoing discussion as far as continuing to monitor that to see any danger or any change in that situation. And then also, how do we rectify the problem of whatever's there um, in the water?
Mm.
Are there solutions to dry it up or dissolve it? I know it's been brought up in neighborhood board meetings, and the military is a set attender of those meetings, and they share. But there needs to be ongoing discussions, transparency, monitoring of it. We can't um, just assume that things are gonna happen. It's of critical importance. So we need to keep our eye on it and to be very diligent in policing what happens going forward. And that's going to require coordination between all levels of government and cooperation and yeah, cooperation and a willingness to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that as that was a big deal. I mean, still a big deal, right? You
Hmm.
got stickers, he had all kind of stuff, right? Um it was like a cockhole thing, right? Everybody band together and like I couldn't imagine that, right? If my kids was drinking that water, what I would do, how
Hmm.
frustrated a lot of people were. Um and sometimes things are prominent, you know, while we're there, but
Hmm.
as time goes on, it just kind of fades away.
Right, right,
And
right.
so I think if I was in this community, that would be what are we doing? Where are we at? What needs to
Hmm.
happen? And I think holding the right people accountable
Hmm.
is a big thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. Well, listen, are you having a good time yet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. You know, um, as you were saying, as you were talking, it's really important. I think as the representative to be advocate for the people, as you shared,
Hmm.
even for you personally, and I see this in so many people I meet. Everybody's so busy, just working and trying to survive and maintain the house, take care of the kids. Um, we're in a era of information overload with our phones, with the internet, newspaper, whatever. I mean, we don't have time to know what's really going on or what our legislators are doing or what bills are happening, and that's where I feel my role is to help educate people or make them aware of what's going on and um, listen to their concerns. It's a two-way communication. I'm there to hear you, and that's where I am going door to door because that's the best way to talk to people. You know. Um, Hear their hearts, connect
Hmm.
with them. And I hear it. And even being a candidate gives me a platform to voice my concern to um, the elected officials, or it gives me a platform to even knock on your door and say, "Hey, this is who I am." Because if I didn't have that platform, you would probably think I'm a weird stranger knocking on your door and trying to find what's going on and have conversation with you. But it's so important. I learned so much talking to people and listening to their concern and trying to figure out, okay, this is a problem. How do we figure this out? How do we take the next steps in discussing solutions for this to make it better? We might not be able to eliminate the problem, but we can make it better. I believe enough where it's it's acceptable and it doesn't you know ruin your quality of life in your sanctuary, in your home.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here, which is, you said something that's really interesting. I've been doing these podcasts. I don't know. We've done a bunch. You're the first person that I've heard say that they learned something while they're speaking door to door, right? Oftentimes it's I get to share my message. I get to tell people what we're going to do or how we're going to move forward. think about this while I kind of cut to this other segment. But what's the number one thing that you've learned being, walking door to door? So you can think about it. Hey, if you're listening in, we're Sit Down Hawaii podcast, and I want you to share this. Share this with a neighbor, share it with a family friend. Remember that your vote is your voice, and that's your right. And so you want to get out there. I don't care if you're 82 or you're 18. Remember that we get to do this. And so I want to encourage you to go ahead and make sure that you're voting. That's November 5th, or if your absentee ballot is coming through the mail, exercise that right because it does matter. Okay, did you have enough time to think about it?
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I'll go for it right now.
Yeah, so number one thing you've learned walking door to door.
I think, as I shared earlier, I get to live vicariously through people I meet, and I think the impression I get answering that question is we're the same. We're people, and we are so alike in just being a human being, being a person, trying to do their best. We all want a good life. We all want um, to be loved. We want to have our children love them. We want to have good relationships with our neighbors. We want to be able to pay our bills. Um, we want to have victory in life. And I think that's the major takeaway that I sense when I meet people. I count it a privilege that I do get to knock on your door, and when you come and answer it, and I get to say hello to you, introduce myself, share my heart, my passion of why I'm doing this, and hear your story. And I meet so many amazing people that inspire me, and I tell people, some of them I call them, you're a wow person, that that's my word to describe you. I'm like, wow, I'm so blessed that I got to meet you, hear your story, and it does something to me. I feel like I get to receive something from them, and it deposits into me as a person, making me a better person in my heart to love people, in my heart to understand people, in my heart to be committed and to serve people, and that is such a blessing. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I want to take a quick break, but first, I want to play a game. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay, here we go. So I'm going to paint the picture. Here we are. It's been a long day. Let's just say you were up 5 in the morning. You went hiking, came back down, and it's 2:30 p.m. and you're hungry. And you get to the alley, IL bowling alley,
Okay.
and you're like, hey, it's time to eat. What are we ordering? What is the go-to order?
Oh, think the kalbi.
Kalbi.
Yeah.
Over the Korean, was it the chicken? Korean chicken? Kalbi.
Yeah, I think I like that. But I don't think you can go wrong over there. Yeah.
Any desserts?
Oh man, their chocolate cake and their lemon crunch cake, killers.
Give me a high five, bro. If you didn't say lemon crunch, I was like, what am I ordering over there, right? What about if you went downstairs, you got shave ice? What's the go-to order over there? What is it? Is it Snow Garden or Ice Garden? Ice Garden. Ice Garden, yeah?
Yeah. To tell you the truth, I haven't had that pleasure because the times I went, they were closed. But there's also Aloha Creamery.
Okay.
And
What's the flavors?
it used
Aloha
to be
Creamery.
Samurai, and even though they support my opponent, I think
Yeah.
they're a great company, and I want to give a shout out to them. I love their Samurai. I learned that they make the product there on site, and they're introducing new
Is
flavors.
that the goody goody?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like goody goody. Yeah.
Wow. There was a samurai in Kapolei growing up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It was only there for I swear 2.5 seconds. But the strawberry vanilla swirl, forget it. Forget it.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I'm a Jamba Juice fan. Stadium Mall. I mean, after a hard day of doing door to door in the sun, you can see that I've gotten a suntan from that. I love my peanut butter moo.
Oh, peanut butter mood. I got a question. I was there. Oh, not kind of recent. A few months ago. my nephew's birthday party. Did they open up the back to look into the ice palace? Is that
they reopened it.
okay? So that is a thing.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure if it was part of the construction, but okay. So they were like, listen, just keep them open. People pretty
can
smart.
watch. Yeah.
Pretty smart, yeah. Just
Yeah.
watch people fall. All right. So we're gonna take a quick break again. You're here with Sit Down Hawaii podcast. Do me a favor, share this. Leave a comment in the comment section below. But we'll be right back. Hey, hope you're having a good time on the podcast. Wanted to take a quick break to bring today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Sweet Life Tea. It's a tea that helps people get through anxiety. Listen, I have anxiety flying. I have anxiety kind of in a lot of areas. And it was something that was affecting me. And so I found this tea. It has organic, natural, vegan, non-GMO ingredients that when you put them all together, it just helped me relax. So there's things like chamomile, licorice root, lavender, and I felt like I wanted to bring you something that helped me. So if you're struggling with anxiety and you just need something to kind of relax that's organic, go ahead and go to sweetlifetea.com. Put in the code SitDownHawaii for 10% off. Okay, looking forward to the rest of the podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Sit Down Hawaii, where we talk about issues and ask questions to get the answers that you're looking for. I want to just stop again and say we're not a political podcast. We're a podcast that talk about pressing issues. And one thing right now is it's election season. So that's why we're talking about elections. That's why we have our guest Garner here. And again, if you're in District 32, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I think 32, like that used to be the station for Nickelodeon. Do you know that?
No.
Yeah. Nickelodeon was 32. Disney Channel was 33, but I was a 30 channel. Do you know what channel 30 was?
ESPN?
Oh, no, man. That was 22. Okay, this says a lot about me. 30 was the cooking channel.
Oh.
Bruh, that was the channel. So you go from 30, skip 31, whatever that was. Then you go Nickelodeon 32, and then you go 33, which was Disney, and then Disney was 31. Anyway, if you're in District 32, you want to go ahead and share this. And again, District 32 is Mauna Loa. It's Aiea. It's, hang on, let me pull it up because I want to make sure I get it all right. So it's Mauna Loa, Aliamanu, Foster Village, parts of Halava, Aiea, and Pearl Ridge. Correct?
Correct.
All right. My guest here is Garner Shimizu. Garner, thank you again for being here. During our break, I was noticing, man, this guy, I'm having a good time. I've been doing a lot of these lately, and not all of them have been a good time. Trust me, but I'm having a genuinely a really good time. And one thing I noticed with you is, people come in, they've got their tie or their suit or their little shirt, and you've come here today in a semi-casual just shirt, button down, might add, nice button down, but you don't strike me as this. I'm extremely polished, and this is what I do for a living. So I kind of want to ask you, how do you see yourself in this as a candidate? Because you strike me as a very approachable person. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for noticing that. Yeah, I believe that I just want to be a down to earth person. I'm not interested in becoming a professional politician. I think as we talked about the word politician, it has a kind of a negative connotation on people's minds that, politicians pay to play, corruption, power, all of that. And I do agree that there is some of that. And I think that is part of the problem, that we need more public servants. And that's what I intend to do. That's what I want to do. Always put the people first. It's for me, it's not about getting a job or getting a position. It's doing a mission for the people, and that's my heart. And kind of expanding on that, I think that money. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, and money has too much of an influence on the process. As a candidate, we try to raise money because we need to spend money, whether it's for mailers, whether it's for yard signs, banners, um, whatever it is, the literature that we drop off when we go door to door. I mean, it does take capital, it does take money, it does take donations, and yet I think I'd like to see a reasonable spending limit, a fundraising limit, and a spending limit, so that it's not about how much you raise and how much you can spend and how much you can influence people by the amount of money you collect, but it'll be more focused on the person, the candidate, their qualifications, their values, their positions, and make it more organic. Um,
Can I just, you're
sure.
talking about campaign reform. How, for those of us who don't know, how does that work currently? How does that look when you're running and you're doing a campaign? You know, is it an equal battle? Does everybody have a same amount or allotment of monies you can spend up to? Like, where do you see the change needs to happen?
Um, as I mentioned, I think we need to set limits on the amount that we can fundraise and how much we spend.
Is there limits now?
There is no limit on how much you can raise or how much you spend. Um, there is a limit on the maximum any one uh, individual can donate to a party. Excuse me, a candidate. So, like in my house race, the maximum that Joshua could donate to me if he chooses is $2,000. Um, and the higher races, the limit goes up. But you know, you can have 100 people give you $2,000, and that's the whole bunch of money. So if you look at there's this thing called the Campaign Spending Commission, and they're in charge of policing um, donations, and as candidates, we have to fill out a specific report, and it's very detailed, very specific, and it is technically public information. You need to know how to navigate to get to the information, but it'll show um, the the amount of donations that you received, um, the amounts that were given, who gave it, and if you look at my campaign spending report, you will see that almost all of my donations have come from friends and family. And if you look at some other um, people that maybe are more politically connected, you'll see they get a lot of donations and big donations from unions or PACs or um, executives of corporations. So I just like to ask the question, oh, why do they give so much money to this one guy and they're not giving it to me? You know. So there's a difference there. There's obviously some relationship there, or a relationship that they want to establish. Um, and I'm not saying that all politicians are on the take, but we're human, and sometimes you get tempted, and you may take the wrong step, and I just want to eliminate that. Even lobbying, I think we should have tighter controls on lobbyists, and how they interact with elected officials. um, I'm a believer in term limits. My opponent is not, and I feel like um, if it's good for the president, the governor, the mayor, the city council, then there's a good reason why you have term limits, is to keep people from being entrenched there in power, and to invite new people there, fresh ideas. So
Can we just stop real quick on that? Let's pause on that. So term limits specifically for, in your opinion, or I guess the way that you see things, what specific positions should have term limits, and what would you propose? What would that look like? 10 years, 4 years, 2 years for what positions?
Right now, as I shared, the president, the governor, the mayor, the city council, they all have term limits. So um, the legislature, which is the House of Representatives, the Senate, and Congress, have no term limit. So you have people that can serve there for a lifetime. So what is reasonable? I think that's subject to discussion. Um, I'm open to somebody running. Let's say for my seat, it's a 2 year term. So 2 years is a short time, and it goes by pretty quickly. So 10 years would be 5 terms. Um, we could make it 10 years as a starting point, or it's a plus or minus. I think it, I'm open to discussion, and it's just giving way for somebody else to um, have a chance. So if let's say it is 10 years, let's say I have the fortunate opportunity to serve for 10 years, and term limits is 10 years, then I would pass the torch to a new person. And I could, if I'm still interested and led by the Lord to run and be part of government, I could run for the Senate, or I could run for another position, or I could run for city council, or maybe it might be where you take a 2 term break, and then you're allowed to run again, but just to break that cycle of power and control, because uh, I, I just am a firm believer in diversity in that aspect. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely think there's been a lot of debate around that. Certain people love term limits, some people don't. Um, yeah, I think this is something for you. If you're in this community, go ahead and write your comments. What do you think? Should term limits happen? Is that something that you want? Is that something that your voice that you would feel comfortable saying, hey, I think that's something that I want to do. I want to jump into a few. We've got two more of these topics that I think is really pertinent to District 32. So I want to direct us to infrastructure and road maintenance. Um, I remember the back road. I think it was like Salt Lake. Oh my goodness gracious! At one point, that was like just crazy, right? It was going behind like Target and going all the way around. It just always felt like there was construction there for a second. I think it's all cleared up, but here are some things. So District 32 faces significant traffic and infrastructure challenges, especially during peak commuting hours. Residents have expressed frustration over aging roads, insufficient public transportation, and traffic congestion. Statistic: traffic delays on major roads in the district, like Moana Loa Road, have increased by 20% in recent years. Um, the question: what are your plans for addressing traffic congestion and improving infrastructure? Infrastructure, sorry.
Okay. Just being in the community, one of the major problems that I've heard and I've witnessed myself is school traffic. So you have an area where, like in Moanalo, you have Moanalo Elementary and Moanalo Middle School right next to each other. During school drop off and school pickup, there's a mad congestion, because you know a lot of people are hitting the same place at the same time, and that's where I hear a lot of concerns, complaints. And I think it would be something where, whether it's traffic monitoring, adult supervision, um, just having parents cooperate and use better judgment in picking up their child or dropping off their child. And it's a safety issue also. So I've heard and experienced where people are lined up on the sidewalk waiting, and then um, there's enough room in one lane to still have through traffic. But if a parent is being in a rush or being inconsiderate to some degree double parks there, then it blocks the flow of traffic and causes people to pass in the opposite um, lane and risk a head-on collision. So those kinds of things happen, in Mauna Loa. They happen in Salt Lake Boulevard with Radford High School and Makalapa Elementary, um, Aliamanu Elementary, Aliamanu Intermediate, and it happens for maybe a half hour, 1 hour window at the most. But uh, those are times that are peak traffic, and um, it really accentuates congestion and safety concerns. So those are things that I think are everyday occurrences. Again, just for drop off and pickup times, and if we look at it a little more carefully and try and coordinate some better um, traffic patterns and driver responsibilities, I think we can improve the situation to a large degree.
Yeah, what about the thought on infrastructure? So just the roads, aging roads, insufficient public transportation. Any solutions around that? How we can address fixing some of these roads?
Um, well, I don't know enough about the road construction, but I would like to see the specifications of roads that are done as far as the materials, the construction materials, um, and have the best product, and do some research on other places, whether it's different states or countries, and um, what is the best product to use. Because I think like anything you see as a consumer, you get what you pay for. And if you use cheap materials, it's not going to last as long. So um, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I think there could be better products and it's worth research. The other part of that would be um, workmanship. So we need to make sure that our construction companies are doing it properly, and we have enough inspectors to make sure that they are doing it the right way and not just trusting that they're doing the job. You know,
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of reputable companies, but everybody's trying to do their best, and yet sometimes we need help to set the standard and make sure that we're doing it the right way, because we the taxpayers are paying for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to kind of move us, and I think I can agree with there's always a better way to do things, right? The moment I've always been taught, the moment you think you've figured it out is the moment that you probably should take a look at it again, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
We were in Japan recently, and I'm telling you, it felt like it was 8 days. They fixed this whole parking lot. By the time when we got there, there was construction, and even the construction zone is gorgeous. Like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful, right? Everything's lined up, and we spent our time. We went around, and then by the eighth day, there was no construction there. It was just done,
Hmm.
and it made me think, oh my goodness, like did they work 24/7 to get this? I have no idea. I don't know what the solution was. It could have been a wizard that just popped up and like, because it felt like that. It felt like, oh my goodness. And we in Hawaii, so things take a while.
Hmm.
And I know everybody's trying their best, but it does seem like there could be a better way to doing things. And
Hmm.
I don't think this is just a my thing. I think there is this. I think generally people are thinking, why is it taking so long? And I'm sure there's a ton of answers around that, but figuring out if there's a better way to do things might be the right start,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Okay, last question, and then we're gonna do something fun. So, small businesses. So, small business support and economic growth. While the district has a mix of local businesses, many are struggling to recover from the economic downturn caused by the pandemic. Supporting small businesses while fostering economic growth is a critical issue. Over 40%, I'll say that again, over 40% of small businesses in District 32 reported difficulty in recovering post pandemic. What initiatives will you put into place to support these businesses and encourage economic growth in your area?
Well, I agree that small businesses are the backbone of our economy and they need to be supported and helped in all ways possible. So, having conversations with small business owners and finding out what are the obstacles, what are the challenges that government places on them that makes it difficult for them to do business, for them to be profitable, uh, would be number one as a government official, and try to streamline those regulations or improve them. um, Another thing we talked about the Aloha Stadium development, and right now again, it is indefinite, unknown, final development because it's subject to definition to some degree, and I want to make sure that whatever is being built is not competing with existing businesses there. We have Stadium Mall there. We have Pro Ridge, we have IAEA Shopping Center, to name a few. Sorry if I didn't name you, but we have existing businesses that are doing well, or they're doing their best to stay in business, and um, they don't need undue competition unnecessarily. So whatever is placed in Aloha Stadium should be things that the community needs that are not there, whether it's healthcare or professional services. Um, you know, Again, the excuse me, the diversity of consumer vendors and provisions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna jump to our final thing here. So we've been doing this thing where we put in your just your background, we put in the demographic of your community, and then the 5 questions that were asked, and we asked ChatGPT, um, give us one question, one question for Garner that's going to bring insight to who you are as a person. Sometimes they're very political, sometimes they're very very loose. But here, let me pull up, and I'm just reading this right off. Okay, so here we go. So based on your platform and background, here's a direct question that I would provide to you. Garrett, you've consistently spoken about advocating for righteousness and prioritizing the voices of the community. In a political landscape where compromise is often necessary, how will you maintain your commitment to your principles while still effectively working with others who may find different views? Want me to read it one more time?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Please.
All right, cool. So you've consistently spoken about advocating for righteousness and prioritizing the voices of the community. In a political landscape where compromise is often necessary, how will you maintain your commitment to your principles while still effectively working with others who may have differing views?
For me, I think there are certain things that are non-negotiable. Um, Certain principles that you stand on, and then as far as the compromise, it's going to be depending on the circumstance and the situation where you try and have wisdom on what is um, real life, because we don't live in a perfect world. We don't live in an ideal world. It we in fact, I was just at a candidate forum last night, and a question was asked, and you talk about something like abortion. I'm a pro-life person. My principles and my belief, my value system is to protect life. Um, so ideally, in a perfect world, there would be no abortion. There would be um, adoption, um, and things of that nature. But I understand that we don't live in a perfect world. There are exceptions. There are um, extraneous circumstances where people are facing traumatic occurrences where they need to make a decision that they feel that is best for them. And I honor and respect in this United States of America, where we have the rights and the freedoms to make those kinds of decisions, that I respect the rights of individuals to make their personal decision. And not cast judgment on them, uh, allow them to make those decisions that they feel best for them, and to promote compassionate understanding and healing on those people that have to go through those traumatic experiences. Um, but those that's maybe one example of where I have my own principle, my own viewpoint, but understanding that not everybody can be at the same place, and life happens, and that's where um, having conversation, having the ability to be open minded, to learn and to grow in capacity uh, of understanding, and having um, mercy and grace instead of judgment and condemnation. That's what is needed.
Do you have anything else that you wanna say before we close up here? I just want to give you a second. If you're listening and this is your community, um, I just want to give you a minute or two. So, anything on your heart, anything that you're thinking of before we wrap up?
Thanks, Josh. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure talking Star with you, meeting you. I'm really blessed to hear your vision or what God is doing through you. Um, just so that I don't forget, my website address is voteshimizu.com. I have an Instagram, voteshimizu. You want to connect with me via email, voteshimizu@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'm doing this again as a calling of the Lord. Um, it's been a wonderful time meeting people, hearing their stories, and I'd really love the opportunity to be involved in government to help make good decisions and also avoid bad decisions. You know, um, our society is changing. The Hawaii that I grew up in is not the same Hawaii. It is kind of breaking my heart to see it change in so many ways, and almost disappearing and being lost. And I feel like if we don't do something and make some positive changes, that it is only going to get worse. And I see people struggling, I see people hurting, um, and I'd like to be part of the solution. I know I don't have all the answers, but I have a heart to care, to want to be part of the solution, and do my part. So I would love to earn your trust and your vote, and most importantly, please vote because your voice does matter.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. I think Garner hit it on the money. Vote. If there's anything that you get out of this, I'm sure you have some sort of a idea of who you want to vote for, whether it's Garner or anyone else. I believe it was Micah. The thought is that you need to have your opinion, and it's a right that you have. So, again, I wanted to just make this really clear. We're not a political podcast. We're a podcast that talks about issues. And right now, the biggest issue is voting. Get out there. November 5th, make your voice heard. For that, I'm Josh here with Sit Down Hawaii. Have a blessed day. Take care. Good podcast. If you watch that podcast, one of my, honestly, kind of a sleeper favorite of mine. Garner was very insightful, and I think that I think he's a genuine person. And from the very beginning, as soon as he walked in, um, it was really easy. Like, it didn't feel like he was frantic or running around. Sometimes you do a podcast and you're like, dang, that guy is kind of crazy. But nah, seems smart. Seemed like somebody who cares. And he was giving off this vibe of, I know what to do. And there's a relentlessness. Relentless? Yeah. He's a little relentless in his approach, as in, like, I'm going to keep on going until it works out. And so, good podcast. I think he's a good guy. I would be stoked if I was in your community, if this is district, what was it, 32, Nickelodeon. Yeah, if you're in the Nickelodeon district of 32, then I think he's a very good option. You should really consider him. Anyway, I had a good time. Hope you had a good time. Leave a comment below. Aloha.